What's up, Fight fans? I'm Ben Bartels. Welcome to the 33rd episode of Cage Talk, your one-stop shop to get all your UFC and fight news updates you're going to need weekly. I know it's been a while, but I'm back. I'm better than ever. I'm wiser than ever. And with this time off, a lot has happened in the UFC space. A whole new streaming platform replacing ESPN Plus, and all the fights of the first quarter of 2026 have been revealed for most of the events. I'm so excited to discuss it all with you, so let's get right to it. Stay tuned. Starting off with the big, groundbreaking news, UFC is moving away from their partnership with ESPN Plus after, I believe, 7 years to move on to Paramount Plus. Now, that's a pretty big change, a whole new streaming platform, which usually means, people got to either erase their ESPN Plus subscriptions and transition to Paramount Plus, or pay for an additional streaming platform in Paramount Plus. Or it could also mean new eyes coming to the sport. Bunch of new things. Viewership is going to be changing drastically. I'm really excited for it. But the biggest news, especially for us fans, is that ESPN Plus's pay-per-view model for numbered events is gone. You heard me right. That means all the fight nights, all the contender series, the tough fights, and specifically the big number of fights with all those championship fights are now free with a Paramount Plus subscription. That means every single week for 2026, as long as there's a UFC event happening, you can watch it if you have Paramount Plus. That means that the price to watch UFC, all the events included, tough, contender series, whatever, went from around $1,000 with all the pay-per-views included, with pay-per-views being around $80 to $90 every time. Pretty steep, honestly, and prices were only going up. And now it's going to be around $100 a year to see all of the UFC content, the fights and everything included, as you will just need a Paramount subscription, which I believe is $13.99 a month, which, is a lot better than the significant pay-per-view price increases. So, a lot is coming with that. I'm assuming that Paramount Plus is also going to be adding a lot to its platform with this, because the UFC originally was at around, I believe, $3 billion deal with ESPN Plus. That deal has now increased to around $11 billion. So the UFC is going to be getting a lot more money now. The fighters are hopefully getting a lot more money now. The quality is going to improve, not like the quality was some major issue or whatever. And new aspects are going to be coming to Paramount Plus for these UFC fights. An aspect I want to talk about specifically is that it got leaked, and it's on Paramount Plus right now. You might be able to check it, but there might be a multi-cam setup for Paramount Plus specifically, meaning that you can pick which camera you watch the UFC through instead of it just flipping automatically to a camera angle that maybe, doesn't capture what you're trying to see out of a UFC fight, for example. So potentially a multi-cam setup where the options are going to be a lot more open to the viewer. And, I'm really excited for how this goes and whatnot. The new brand, everything included. The UFC is going to be going, evolving a lot these next couple years with Paramount Plus. And no pay-per-view subscription, a lot more viewers. I'm excited to see what happens with the sport. I think, personally, it's only up from here. ESPN Plus wasn't the worst partnership in the world, but it definitely could use in a lot of improvements. And I think Paramount Plus is going to build on a lot of that. Specifically, I wanted to talk about in this episode, though, were the first quarter fights of 2026, right? There were 3 numbered fights and a whole lot of fight night events announced with this Paramount deal. 1 second, let me load it up. I specifically wanted to talk about UFC 324, which, if you all don't know at this point, has my favorite fighter on it of all time headlining. Kind of a controversial fight, especially since it's for the interim UFC lightweight title, which usually means it's for the next fighter to fight for the title, with Ilia Topuria out because of family issues. He's dealing with a divorce matter right now. Awful stuff, but, he's going through right now. And in the meantime, Justin Gaethje, my favorite fighter of all time, is fighting Paddy Pimblett for the interim title fight. Now, listen, I love Justin Gaethje. I've said that a bunch now, and I think Paddy Pimblett is a great fighter. But do either of these guys deserve an interim title shot when you have fighters like Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira, who are fighting in March? I will get to that later. And specifically, Arman Tsarukyan, since he fought Gamrot, undefeated fighter on a 5-fight win streak, I believe, coming off a win over Charles Oliveira, Dan Hooker, Beneil Dariush, and Justin Gaethje, who has fought Rafael Fiziev, Max Holloway, and lost. Dustin Poirier, Rafael Fiziev again. So, it's an amazing resume, but not the greatest when it comes to fighters, when it comes to comparing fighters like Max Holloway, who have beaten him, or Oliveira, who have beaten him, or Arman Tsarukyan, who have not fought either of these guys, and is perfectly able to fight for an interim title and was actually supposed to fight Islam Makhachev early into 2025, but had to pull out because of a back issue or a weight cutting issue. I guess we'll have to see later. But regardless, interim title. Reportedly, the winner of this will be fighting for the UFC Undisputed Lightweight title. And on that, I think Justin Gaethje is going to win this fight. I know Paddy Pimblett is the favorite. He's the younger fighter. Justin Gaethje is around 37. Paddy Pimblett is around 31. And I know the odds are in Paddy Pimblett's favor. But when you really look at the technical aspect, and first of all, if this was prime Justin Gaethje, I don't think this would be a question. But if you really look at it, you got Justin Gaethje taller by just a tiny bit, right? Paddy Pimblett uses his length a lot more, I would say, especially with a 3-inch reach advantage. But Paddy Pimblett has not the greatest boxing, right? Great kicks, great jiu-jitsu, and not great wrestling. And a lot of people are saying that Paddy Pimblett's way to victory here is by taking Justin Gaethje down. I agree. But does Paddy Pimblett really have the wrestling skill to take Justin Gaethje down? Justin Gaethje has a fantastic takedown defense. He's only been taken down by Michael Chandler after he was hurt, Khabib Nurmagomedov, who was like the greatest UFC wrestler of all time, and Rafael Fiziev in their second fight after a slip from a leg kick from Justin Gaethje. So I really feel like, a lot of people are looking over Justin Gaethje here. Of course, I'm slightly biased, I guess you could say, but I just feel like Justin Gaethje has more tools at his available to use against Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett has a lot of tools, the kicks, the jiu-jitsu, but getting it in that realm is going to be tough, especially with Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett, who kind of keeps his chin in the air a lot of the time, which is not something you really want to be seeing too much. Moving on down the card, I'm not going to do this for every card, but I really want to go in depth on this card as it is on the 24th of January, which is very soon, as you know. We have Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong. Originally, this fight was supposed to be Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes for the undisputed UFC bantamweight women's title in the co-main event. Kayla Harrison had to pull out, which is not great because that was a really good card and a really good fight, and honestly the only title fight on this card, and maybe the best women's fight of all time because Shevchenko versus Weili really wasn't that good. But, Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong is, of course, a great fight. Sean O'Malley is going to bring that electric striking that we all know and love against another striker like Song Yadong. And Song Yadong's coming off that controversial eye poke win over Henry Cejudo. Sean O'Malley's coming off his two dominant the second one was pretty dominant. The first one was close. Dominant losses to Merab Dvalishvili. Regardless, right? I mean, both these guys are young. Sean O'Malley has a pretty significant height and reach advantage. But I just think Sean O'Malley gets it. I mean, I don't think anybody, especially in the bantamweight division, maybe Peter Yan, but honestly, that's a close fight too, and I'd love to see that for a rematch for the title, even though he doesn't deserve it. I'd love to see that. In a pure striking fight, I don't think anybody beats Sean O'Malley, personally. I mean, I don't think it's that crazy to say he's the best striker in this division. Pure striking. If you add in the wrestling and you add in the striking, I think Merab beats him. It's close, and I do think Sean O'Malley beats Peter Yan in their rematch, which, selfishly as a fan, I would love to see, even if, Sean O'Malley doesn't necessarily deserve it, as he just lost to Merab. Regardless, I'm going Sean O'Malley by decision on that one. And for reference, I'm going Justin Gaethje by either 4th or 5th round knockout against Paddy Pimblett. Moving on to the third fight of the card, the featured fight, is Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Derek Lewis. Waldo really has made 2025 his year. I mean, he didn't do the greatest against Sergey Pavlovich, and then he bounced back with a win against Shamil Gaziev and then Ante Delia, knocking them both out in the first round. Derek Lewis coming off the pretty impressive first round win against Taliesin Teixeira. And as much as I'd love Derek Lewis to win this fight, I think Waldo Cortez Acosta has the youth and agility side, going for him in this fight. Both fighters are incredibly powerful. I don't know if they're the two hardest hitting heavyweights, but they're definitely up there. I mean, you got guys like Sergey Pavlovich who haven't really been getting all knockout wins lately, and you got guys like Tom Aspinall and whatnot. But Waldo Cortez Acosta, Derek Lewis, two just huge dudes are going to be slanging hammers the whole time, and I'm really excited for that. Moving on down the card again, we got Arnold Allen versus Jean Silva. That is another great fight. Jean Silva's coming off his first loss in the UFC to Diego Lopez. Previously doing pretty good in that fight. It was kind of wishy-washy. Lost the first, was winning the second, got knocked out, going for that knockout. So, Jean Silva is still very high up. I still think he's the most talented fighting nerd. Going against Arnold Allen, of course, just a mainstay in the heavyweight division. He'll beat guys like Dan Hooker and have close fights with Max Holloway and Movsar Evloev and beat Giga Shikadze, having a pretty long layoff, might I add. It's been over a year since he fought, and honestly, because of that, and also Jean Silva having, a lot of momentum, I wouldn't really say a lot of momentum, he just lost, but being a part of the fighting nerds and the skill that comes with that, I think both these guys are as well-rounded as you can be as a UFC fighter, but I think I have to go Jean Silva here, just pretty much off activity and power, right? I think Jean Silva has a pretty distinct power advantage in this fight. Both these guys are incredibly quick. You could even argue that Arnold Allen is quicker, but I would definitely say Jean Silva has a power advantage in the striking. Wrestling, maybe Arnold Allen could mix it up there, but Jean Silva's no slouch on the ground either. I'm going to go Jean Silva by maybe decision or late rounds knockout. I always struggle picking guys early knockout, but if there was a fight to do it, it would actually be Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Derek Lewis, which I'm picking Waldo by second round knockout. But I'm going to go Jean Silva by decision in this third fight of this card. Now, Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes not happening anymore, but I am getting word now that Alexa Grasso versus Rose Namajunas, which replaced that, is actually getting removed as well, probably an injury on one of the Grasso or Shevchenko side, which is or Grasso or Namajunas side, I should say, which is a shame. That was another great women's fight. The rest of the card's pretty good. Rose Namajunas versus Natalia Silva, I should say, is the next fight on the card. And this is a very good fight. Natalia Silva is actually in line for a title shot. So I'm going to have to go with her here. I think she's quicker. I think she has some of the best footwork I've ever seen in a long, long time, especially in these women's fights. She's so bouncy, so light. Her kicks are very nice, and she's, just very fast in general. And I think she's going to be next to fight for the title, especially if she beats Rose Namajunas. But, she already beat Alexa Grasso. Moving on down the card, Natalia Silva by decision, by the way. Moving on down the card, we got Umar Nurmagomedov versus Deiveson Figueiredo. I'm going to go with Umar Nurmagomedov here, and this does worry me because it's a pretty confident pick for Umar, but Deiveson Figueiredo has extreme power, and Umar has a tendency to get caught, not finished, but caught in these fights. If you remember last time out against Mario Batista in that second round hit him with a nasty right knee right to the head as Umar was kind of ducking to his left side as he's a southpaw going for that takedown. But if assuming that doesn't happen and Deiveson, can't really find that shot, he looked good again his last fight against Montel Jackson, not really showing that tenacity though. He is getting up there in age, being 38, Umar being 30. I'm just going to have to go with Umar here. He's more spry, younger, and definitely has more momentum on his side here. Both guys are great though. Both of them are coming off wins. So I'm excited to see who wins that fight. Honestly, it could be a title elimination fight, seeing how the Sean O'Malley and Song Yadong fight goes. Moving on down the card again, we got Atabak Gatier versus Andrei Pulev. And, honestly, I just want to talk about this fight because Atabak Gatier is maybe one of the greatest prospects in the UFC right now. He is a mini Francis Ngannou. If you see this man he fights like Khalil Roundtree fights against unranked fighters. It's actually insane. He just will walk you down to the cage, unloading power punches, boom, 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 until you're done. And usually his fights only last a minute, 2 minutes, whatever. And he just gets these guys out of here real quick. And I'm expecting nothing less against Andrei Pulev. Great fighter, but I got Atabak Gatier by first round knockout. I want to talk quickly about the other fights happening, the other numbered fight main events. Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez 2. Diego Lopez does not deserve a rematch. There's fighters like Movsar Evloev and Leron Murphy. Regardless, I'm going to talk about that fight more in February when that fight comes up, but that fight is happening directly after 324. So I'm going to go Alexander Volkanovski unless he gets caught by Diego Lopez, because the only reason Diego Lopez would win that fight is because Alexander Volkanovski is aging. More on that later, though. 326 is being headlined by Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira for the BMF title. Great fight and has been anticipated for a long time. I just feel like Max Holloway has most of the advantages in this fight. Of course, Oliveira has the jiu-jitsu advantage over pretty much anyone he fights ever, pound for pound in the UFC. But Max Holloway is just a different level of striker. He's been looking very good. He dominated Dustin Poirier, in my humble opinion, in his last fight for 5 rounds. I'm going Max Holloway by decision or late rounds knockout in rounds 4 or 5. Oliveira is tough as nails, but I think he gets caught too often. And even in his last fight against Gamrot, which he won by decision, he got caught a bit too often to make him think that he beats, a pressure fighter like Max Holloway. So I'm excited to see how it goes with UFC and Paramount Plus these next couple months. And that's all I got for you guys. Be sure to check out other episodes on FHNtoday.com and FHNtoday on Spotify. Drop a comment below on how excited you are for the new Paramount Plus deal with the UFC. Once again, I'm Ben Bartels, signing off.